Welcome back. We're gonna answer Diana with, I love you. Diana hitched her breath. It was true though. I had grown to love her for everything she'd done. She was brave, powerful, beautiful, everything I desired in a person. My heart beat wildly for her, and I could only pray that she understood my feelings. Diana looked at our hands, her eyes warring a bit. I instinctively wiped her eyes, but with my fingers, now concerned. Diana?
I don't know what love is.
Aw. I stared dumbfounded. She didn't know what love was. However, she surprised me by placing a gentle, shaking hand on my cheek, leaning in.
But I'm willing to learn, if it's with you.
Aww. I gasped slightly, seeing the earnest and care in her eyes, before she closed them and gently planted a kiss on my cheek. A soft shudder ran down my spine as I felt her soft lips press against my skin. Kiss her! Kiss her! Kiss her! I couldn't take any more. I needed to kiss her. I pulled Diana close and wrapped my arms around her neck, capturing her lips with my own. She gasped, surprised at my sudden earnest, but slowly began to melt into the kisses between us. Her lips were as heavenly as the night I first tasted them. Her arms gently wrapped themselves around my waist, pulling me closer to her body. The jangle of her brute dancer's garb echoed in the room, making me smile slightly at the surprising noise. I nearly forgotten she was still in her dancer's outfit. On the row, my fingers slowly danced down Diana's shoulders and traced over the seam of her outfit, making her body shudder ever so slightly. Was she enjoying a mere touch that much? Or was she hungry for energy? I pulled away slightly, seeing her eyes dance between red and gold. Some control trying to maintain within her gaze on me. She was out of energy, and she needed more than just a kiss. For now, I would take it slow. I leaned back in and kissed her again, this time biting her lower lip and enticing her to let go of control that she had. I wanted her to relax and for me to be the one to comfort her and hold her against me. Maybe it was because of the call of her succubus body had on me, or maybe it was because my heart desired to be with her that much. I didn't care, but I obeyed the command of my heart to drive her to the pleasure we both craved. The night would be for us, and the warmth of the afterglow would be exquisite. Diana released an almost caramel moan against my lips and tightened her grip on my waist, almost slamming my body against hers. My plan was working, and she was falling for my temptation. I couldn't help the smirk that painted itself across my face at the gesture. In return, I quickly rushed my hands up Diana's body and combed my fingers into her hair before gripping her horns. To my surprise, Diana released a moan against my lips, causing me to pull away and stare into Diana's surprised eyes. A blush ran across her cheeks, but her gaze melted into one of lessened desire as I held her horns in my grasps. Were her horns her weak spot? Apparently so. I gripped them harder. So her horns are extremely sensitive. Aw. I was right. I pulled Diana closer to me with her horns and almost slammed my lips into hers, wanting to devour the moans she was releasing. I felt myself become more passionate in the kisses between us, needing to feel more of her. Diana dug her nails in my hips and practically pushed me onto the bed behind me, causing us to bounce on the mattress. I reflectively released her horns and felt my hands fall back on either side of me as Diana smirked down at my form.
You're not playing fair.
Well, I don't have... I'm sorry, but what else am I supposed to do? You are a succubus. I am a human. I don't have any other abilities. So, of course, I'm going to not play fair. Also, it's not my fault that's your weak spot, is it? Mind you, I'm loving the art style. People were saying that they didn't like the art style that much. I still love it. It's still very nice to look at. I felt a small warmth ignite in my core, pleading with me to ravish her again. I felt myself become lost in her dominant gaze over me. I felt the clothing on my body become uncomfortable, and I wanted to take it all off beneath her, but I remained locked in her sight. Then I ran a hand along my cheek and traced a finger down my body. Slowly it danced over each curve it found lovingly and sending shivers up my spine. Look who's talking! Diana chuckled before leaning in nose to nose with me.
Let me make you feel good.
At last, Diana became the one who insinuated our kiss. Her hands pressed down on my waist to pin me to the bed beneath us. I wrapped my legs around her waist, pulling her to me, causing her chuckle to echo from between our lips. As her hands began to comb over my skin and tug my shirt off of my body, I felt her pull away to strip it off of me. It was tossed aside to be forgotten, for our focus remained on each other. I felt myself turn red at what we were slowly diving into, taking in the fact that I was initiating a dance with the succubus I'd grown to love. It was unfair that she was in the crow, but it was only natural. I barely noticed the garb over Diana's body disappearing, leaving her bare over me, despite the purple taints over her skin covers, her essentials. I could tell she was still very much new just from the heat between us. Diana kissed trails down my cheeks and necks, nipping over my skin and making the warmth within my core burn even harder need. Every kiss and every touch placed on me made my mind spin and dance in endless waves of soft euphoria. I knew that this wasn't her first time being intimate, but I could tell that every touch she made, she only did for me and my own pleasure. She truly indeed intended to make me feel good. I became like putty in her hands, my own eventually resting above my head as I let her strip me bare and massage over every inch of my body. She didn't just kiss over me, she made every muscle in my body obey her fingers and palm. Even as her tongue licked over my most delicate spots, she took great care in watching my reactions and listening to my moans, working her way into my mind, body and soul to tie them all together in a heated frenzy of lust and desire. This was truly the work of a master succubus, and I was able to call her mine. Even as my cries echoed through the room, she didn't stop until I was floating on cloud 9. Her pleasures came from my moans and multiple releases, filling herself with my energy and devouring the pleasure we shared hungrily and lovingly. I was in heaven in a succubus embrace. I could barely reach her arms around my form as she held me close to her and kissed over my hair.
My sweet love, I will hold you close for as long as I can.
Oh my God, you called me my sweet love. And I will be with you forever. My heart fluttered as the feeling embedded within my chest. I was happy, and I could tell keep this happiness close to me for as long as I lived. Nothing could ruin this moment. Guarantee something's going to ruin this moment. I woke after a peaceful sleep, staring up at Diana. She leaned back against the bedpost reading a book I didn't recognize. As I started to shift, Diana looked down at me and grew a loving smile.
Good morning, dear. Ready for today?
Despite feeling the tired effects of the morning, I nodded with a smile of my own. I could tell the day was going to be a good day. Diana closed her book and placed it on the table beside the bed before standing up, stretching her body. However, mid-stretch, Diana froze. In fact, the entire room became frozen, as if time itself had stopped. Huh? Diana? I felt myself move freely, despite the air around me being still. I stood from the bed and walked around Diana to see her frozen like a statue. What was going on?
Human.
My heart froze as I looked to see Sarah by the corner of the room, arms crossed, and stares cold as ice. What was he doing? Sarah, what are you?
Come with me.
Without another word, Sarah left the room into the hall. I was massively confused but followed, now worried about what would happen if I didn't. As we walked on the hall, I was stunned to see every person in the castle frozen in time. Hold on, Sarah, if you could do this the whole time, why didn't you just freeze the Demon Lord and then we could just kill him? I'm just curious, why couldn't you do that? Or was the demon like too strong? How was this possible? How was Sarah doing this? Sarah was silent the entire walk. Eventually, we walked to the golden set of doors, which led into the chamber. Her family was killed. I hesitated, staring warily at Sarah before seeing him open the chamber. To my surprise, the room changed from a nursery room, full of blood, to a view of an outdoor space. As far as I could see were trees and plant life, bustling and full of life. What the hell? Sarah stepped in and waited at the door, ushering me inside. I followed, despite every nerve in my body yelling at me to just run back. I had to see this through, whatever this was. Sarah led me into the forest of trees, making sure I was able to see him the entire time until we reached a patch of land where a singular large tree covered in purple, pink and purple petals. Whoa. I found myself becoming entranced at the sight. What was this place? Why was it here? As I examined the tree, I noted the major abundance of fruit in the branches. I smiled, knowing exactly what they were. Sweet flowers.
You know of them?
I nodded. Diana gave me a slice of one in the human world. They're the best things I've ever tasted. I could faintly remember the taste of it. It was perfectly sweet and moist. I was so full of energy after that day I was hardly able to keep it all in. Sarah let out a small chuckle, drawing my attention.
I was barely walking when I had my first taste. My lady climbed the tree and picked it herself before splitting it open down the middle and giving me one of the halves.
I slightly smiled, imagining young Diana and Sarah doing such a thing. As my gaze wandered to the tree, I spotted the crowns of Diana's parents and sister at the base, making me frown a bit. At the sight, Sarah let out a small sigh.
Tell me honestly, do you truly believe you can make her happy?
I looked at Sarah, surprised at the question. His face was stern and serious as he gripped his spear in a white knuckle grip. Why was he asking such a question? With a nod, I took in a breath and stood up straight. I do. Okay, so as I said, we are going to do the multiple ending, so I need to make 2 saves for this one. This is the true ending. I want to be the one to make her happy. I truly loved her and wanted to be with her for the rest of my life. I knew that Sarah had been with her his entire life, but I couldn't stop what I was feeling for her sake. Sarah stared hard at me, taking in what I was saying, before raising his spear, pointing at me.
You truly love her?
I do. I'm sorry if that upsets you. A moment passed. What would Sarah do? I prayed that he wouldn't strike me down. I hoped that he was willing to listen and compromise. A small chuckle escaped Sarah's lips, causing me to look at him in confusion. His face painted his concern and his strange thoughts on this almost humorous situation. As he lowered his spear, he shook his head.
It doesn't upset me. I just want Azayr to be happy.
As do I. Sarah locked eyes with me, gazing into my soul to judge my words for their truth. I was being honest, and truly, to know that both of us cared about her and loved Diana was amazing to fathom. Eventually, Sarah smiled slightly, despite his heart breaking beneath his eyes.
Then, you should continue being at her side.
Oh, Sarah! I was astonished. Sarah was giving me his blessing? I wasn't sure what to say. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing was able to come out from the shock I was in. Sarah, however, chuckled quietly, holding his forehead.
How pathetic am I? I was ready when Diana went off to marry her betrothed, but I'm nowhere near ready for this.
I couldn't help but frown. Sarah deeply loved Diana, and I felt terrible having to be the one to break his heart. So I couldn't lie to myself about this. I would have been in the same position if Sarah had taken her away from me. I took a deep breath, trying to be strong. I'm sorry, I promise, though, that I will protect and love her for the rest of my life. With a grimace, Sarah looked to me once more, judging my truth. When he found no deceit, he nodded and took a shaky breath. For the first time since we met, it was the first time I saw him give up.
What is going on?
Oh, goodness gracious me! You scared the living sweet flowers out of me. Sarah and I suddenly looked to the direction of Diana's voice, seeing her completely red in the face in anger. As she walked forward, Sarah bowed his head in submission.
My lady, I
asked Sarah if we could talk in private. Diana stopped walking and stared at me with the most confused look I'd ever seen. I giggled a bit before stepping to her and taking her hand. I wanted to ask him if it was okay to be with you. He's part of your family, after all. Sarah looked up, shocked, but not in an unpleasant way. He seemed more surprised that I was covering for him, if anything. Diana looked to Sarah, seeing his expression before looking to mine in mild curiosity.
You asked him if you could be with me?
I nodded, pulling her to me slightly. As I softly said her real name, she slightly gasped in shock. Azayr, I love you, and I want to be with you forever. I know that I'm just a human, but I want to be by your side and love you for the rest of my days. Diana was completely speechless. She stared deep into my gaze, both in shock and utter amazement. I, however, stood my ground. My heart was in the air, hoping it wouldn't come crashing down. As Diana smiled, however, it began to swell. Diana gently held my cheeks and caressed it lovingly.
I would be honored to call you mine, my heart.
I couldn't stop myself from crying. My chest was becoming overwhelmed by my emotions of love that I almost couldn't contain myself. Or in real life, this is actually really sweet. Sarah stood there and smiled at the both of us, causing us to look over. Diana's hand squeezed over mine as she looked apologetically at her guard.
Sarah,
It's all right, my lady. All I have ever wanted was your happiness.
Sarah walked over and gently leaned over, kissing Diana's cheek before stepping back.
I will serve you and protect your love for as long as I live.
Oh, he's going to protect us both. That is so sweet. I'm going to cry. Diana choked us up, covering her mouth as tears gently began to flow from her eyes. Sarah only smiled and walked around us towards where the castle was, leaving us together. We watched him go before turning to each other. I wiped away Diana's tears as she slowly tried to calm down. Despite it being futile, I chuckled a bit at the sight. I love you, Isaiah. Diana took a deep breath, trying to regain herself, before pulling me to her and wrapping her arms around me.
I love you too.
I leaned in and captured her lips in mine, earning a sweet kiss back. As our lips touched, the wind around us picked up, causing the leaves on the trees above us to sway. Purple and pink leaves that had fallen from the branches flew up and danced around us, ecstatically, as if the world was giving us its blessing. I was more than happy to be with this woman, and I vowed to give her everything, as she would do the same for me. We were completely happy. The energy that sparked within Diana, completely filled with power, gave them the strength to completely annihilate the Demon Lord's army, almost single-handedly. What many expected to take years to accomplish, Diana took days. Every attack the Demon Lord threw at us ended with him becoming utterly defenseless, soldierless, and powerless. Despite managing to escape each time, we dwindled his troops to a mere handful of imp demons. Soon we had cornered him against the stretch of water called the Decay Sea. In his castle, Zero, Diana, and I stood upon a cliff top, staring down at the legions that had gathered below us, as we mentally prepared ourselves for what would be the final battle.
To think, this will finally be over.
Once it is, you will become the new queen of this world.
I looked over to Diana, seeing a soft glimmer of fear on her face. Was she not prepared for that responsibility? I took her hand, causing her to look over at me in surprise. As I nodded, I let a grin paint over my face. You'll be an amazing queen. Diana looked to the crowd and stepped forward, slightly arching her back towards the legions below. She no longer was just Diana, but she'd become the mighty queen of the rebellion, one that I loved with all my heart.
Milites! Et hug liberati esturei tramcun tuis omnibus conversiris. Sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem. Nocte, lavabir mur, arcem, hostium sanguine. Ele dio dominati sun nostri. Noste struet, ium mitere, profundissimum, inferni detractos.
Diana summoned her saber, letting it shine brilliantly. As the purple tint over her skin began to twist and turn, before my eyes the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphing into beautiful demonic wings. I watched with pride as Diana's body lifted off the ground and began to fly over the legions, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
And that cry marked the dawn of change. The demon world would end the age of the Demon Lord's tyranny and begin the age of united peace and prosperity. With Diana soaring through the air bowed to her and proved her worthy of such power. As I stared, time around me slowed as I took in everything that had happened. We were here at the end of the war, where will we truly go from here? Who knew? But I knew that I would be at Diana's side forevermore. I managed to seduce her into bringing me to a new world and experience everything. We were in love, and I was certain that she would become the beacon of life, not only for me, but for every demon in this world. For all she managed to seduce me to, the demon war was only the beginning of our lives together.
Well, you did it! Congratulations! You've made it to the end of your story. I have to say, I am very surprised at how it turned out.
I know, right? Awesome! We got a good ending!
Nevertheless, I'm glad things worked out in the end, whether it was for the better or otherwise. I mean, come on. You got to be with a succubus and help her fight in a war. How crazy is that?
How did the war end?
You even got her to admit that she is in love with you. Go you! Demons are very hard to convince that you love them. Tell me about it, I know.
Huh?
Anyways, you've been through a lot, so why don't we skip to... Huh? You want to know what happened after the war? Well,
yeah.
I mean, I guess I could tell you.
Yay! Story time, come on, Kay! Spill the beans!
After the war was finished, the entire rebellion celebrated. Word spread far and wide about the rebellion's success, and soon every kingdom in the Abyssal Plains had become united with the new authority. You would think demons would be more hostile towards each other, being demons and all, but the threat of the Demon Lord was what brought the entire world together. The final battle between Diana and the Demon Lord became quickly one-sided, as he was no match for the power she had gathered from your love.
Aww!
Guess the power of love really does conquer all.
Aww.
Anyway, when the war ended, the entire rebellion celebrated as Diana presented his head to the masses like a trophy before
Ew.
burning it and letting the ashes sink into the ground. The day after, she became queen of the demon world. It definitely shocked her, and it took her a while to get used to being called Your Highness by the other demons, but you helped her through it. Sarah began to focus more on the military and only guarded Diana publicly. When they were out of the public eye, however, Sarah left her to you to care for. Diana always preferred your company regardless. You got her wrapped around your little finger, don't you? There's still the question of what you'll do now that the demon war is over. Diana is the queen and all, so she can't really leave. You'll figure it out, I'm sure.
Woo! Awesome! The demon world finally knew peace. It was a grand moment, the sound of millions cheering, echoing and burning themselves in my memory in celebration for the end of the war. Diana had finally destroyed the Demon Lord, and soon enough we would watch her become the monarchy of the Abyssal Plains, uniting the entire world under her rule. It was almost too unreal to experience and see as a human. However, I was happy for Diana. I was proud to stand beside her and support her through it all. The war was an experience in half, and I would never forget it for as long as I lived. As for me, I found myself drawn to Diana, hoping to spend every night with her in my arms. The human world became a faint drifting memory in my life and embedded itself into the demon world. Many demons questioned me, but Sarah and Diana defended me with every conflict that came. However, this was never a day that went by that I didn't wonder, did I make the right choice? Was it a heavier chapter of my life, one that tested the love between me and Diana? My heart seemed to remind me that I'd come to the demon world to help Diana, and now it was time for her to honour her end of the deal. She had to teach me everything about the 5 rules and about magic as queen. That wasn't possible now. To my surprise, I didn't seem to mind. I'd given the experience of a lifetime, and I easily accepted it as a promise fulfilled. The faint memory of my own powers slightly tingled through me every time I grew confident, eagerly reminding myself that I had the strength of my own. I would never let anyone come between me and Diana ever again. The thought of it all echoed in my mind as I laid in bed looking up at the ceiling. With a wide smile on my face, despite the danger of being real, the war was an adventure fun to look back upon in my memories. I took in a breath and let out a sigh, leaning back against the pillow beneath my head and closing my eyes. I was at peace, and everything was alright.
Are you okay, dear?
100% okay that we are here with you. I opened my eyes at the sound of my pet name, looking up to see Diana smiling at me from her side of the bed. I could only giggle and cuddle closer to her, feeling her wrap her arms around me. I was just thinking about us.
Were you now? What about us?
With a smile, I nuzzled Diana's chest softly and closed my eyes, listening to her steady and loving heartbeat. How thankful I am to be with you. Diana stared down at me, gently hugging me to her. I could feel her joy at the situation resonating from her embrace and her kisses over my head.
I am thankful that you're here too. You have done so much for me, and I will cherish you forevermore.
I couldn't help but look up at her beautiful ruby eyes, feeling her stroke my cheek lovingly.
I vow to make you happy and protect you with my life.
And are you, Isaiah? The sound of her real name rolling off my tongue made her giggle and nuzzle close to me. I loved her real name, and I loved holding her against me.
I love you.
I believed every word. I let her words embed themselves in my heart, and I would remember them forever. As Anna hugged me into her warm body, we let out a simultaneous sigh of contentment. I would love her and continue to hold her close for the rest of my life. Nothing would be able to tear me away from her any longer. And that was my perfectly, happily ever after. End. The right choice. E. So yeah, that of course was the end of Diana's route, but not fully the end of her route. She actually does, I believe, have 2 endings that we still need to look at. The bad ending and one other ending. So I'm going to now head off and do the other ending for you guys to see, and then we'll do her bad ending, and then we'll head off to another of the characters. So yeah guys, see you in the next part of Diana's route.